Hey everybody, this is Carrie Bone, the Brain Diva, and I'm here with one of my wonderful, beautiful, amazing friends, Kim Brogan. I met Kim years ago when we were both selling Stella and Dot jewelry, and now she also sells Ever Skincare. She's basically an expert in it. But our backgrounds are physical therapy. So for my Conquering Mental COVID program that launches today, I wanted to talk to another healthcare professional that is most likely experiencing the same things that I'm experiencing. And Kim works in physical therapy at the VA in Augusta, Georgia. And
Actually, it's Fort Gordon. I work for the
Fort
Army
Gordon.
now. Yes, now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
All good.
So, we're all the healthcare professionals and the educators are going through a lot of changes right now. And our brain does not like change. We like to stay the same. We like to have routine. So when COVID came, everything just got blown out of the water, and like protocols changed for healthcare workers. Of course, teachers were forced to go online in the spring, and now they're hybrid teaching. It's been stressful for a lot of us. So I wanted to bring another healthcare professional on here to talk about the changes that we have experienced and the emotionally taxing part of it. Because even though a lot of us are working overtime, we're short-staffed because of staff being out with COVID, that's not it. That's not where it ends. It goes from there. So Kim, thank you so much for being on here today. I'm so excited to have you. So I wanted to ask you, I know you work in acute care. So for those of us, for those of my audience that don't know acute care, that is like actually in the hospital. So when a person gets sick and they're, sent to the hospital straight from home, diagnosed with COVID, when the physician feels it's appropriate for them to get physical therapy to regain their strength, Kim is going to be one of those first people in there. And that means going to the ICU, working with these people who get put on vents as they're coming out of it. So she is one of those frontline people. She's one of those frontline healthcare professionals that we hear about all the time. So Kim, would you just share a little bit? We were talking before I started recording about the physical. Let's talk about the physical taxing part of what's happened since COVID and how your job has shifted, or how your emotional or how your physical, physical therapy has always been physical for the therapist just as much as the patient sometimes. But we're talking about being in ICU. So how is your job more physically demanding than it ever has been since you started? And you've been doing this a long time, like I have.
Right. I guess so. It's wearing all the appropriate PPE. Because we had to check out scrubs, put on a different set of scrubs, which that's no big deal. But it's wearing the scrubs, and there is another gown robe you have to put on. I covered my head. I had the N95 mask on. I had a shield on. You are covered from head to toe going to see this patient. And literally, you can hardly breathe from those N95 masks. It is a little bit suffocating. I've had moments where I've had irritations, like a red mark on my nose from those N95 masks. But yet, I'm sweating. You're sweating to death in there, and you're trying to see that patient and be that best for that patient, and it is physically demanding in that way. And I even found myself seeing 2 to 3 COVID patients, back to back to back. Of course, changing my gown, putting a new one on, and that was really challenging. But it was almost harder to go in and out, back in and out. But that was a challenge right there. It's just the covering that you have. And then you can only imagine what your patients think when you don't really realize they don't even know what you look like at all.
Right.
So
Like they're used to seeing our faces,
Yes. Yeah.
and they feel, I'm sure, because I've had to think about, this is emotional intelligence, this is how this all ties in.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to put myself in their shoes, and I bet some of them, not all of them, but some people feel guilty because you're coming in there and have to gown,
Mm-hmm.
glove, mask, and just to be around them. I've had patients in the home apologize, they feel bad, and it's not their fault. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not something they did. So this has been a huge change for us, because like before COVID, pre-COVID, how many times did you really have to go in isolation, gown, glove, and mask in a normal week? Like, I know when I worked in acute
Rarely.
care, it
Yeah.
rarely, like
Mm-hmm.
once in a while you would have a patient with an infectious disease, or like a wound or something like that that might be infected, and very rare. So we were talking about the N95 masks. I remember, like, when you were given, when you started a new job at a hospital, home health, you did the test to make sure your N95 fit properly. You put that puppy where you knew where it was, and you probably never looked at it again. I mean, I rarely, I can't remember the last time I wore my N95
Right.
um, before COVID. I mean, we just
Yeah.
didn't need them. We didn't need them.
No.
So now to have to do that in between, like you said, back-to-back patients, strip down, redress, and go to the next one, and you're in there physically trying to help these people, and most therapists, I think I can speak for, I mean, we give 150%, like we're physically trying to help these people.
Mm-hmm.
And, like you said, the nurses, we, therapy, we get to go out and then see other people where the nurses are still on the unit. Many times, they do 12-hour shifts, and a lot of,
Right. Because I get to walk out of the unit. I'm sure they get breaks, but
yeah,
I went I think maximum what I could do was 3 patients at a time. And then I had to get out of there for a while.
take a break.
But
Yeah,
those nurses can't leave. They
no.
cannot leave. Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is why I felt so compelled to do this, because a lot of people, well, you know what, you work in healthcare, this is what you signed up for. Well, we did sign up. We were aware that, you may have to gown, glove, mask for certain people, but we weren't prepared for a pandemic. Just like the educators were not prepared for a pandemic. Who prepares for that? Like, yes, we signed up to work in healthcare, but there aren't too many nurses that really signed up to wear the PPE that is required 12 hours straight, and just take a
Right.
break. So those pictures that people see on social media of the nurses and the doctors exhausted, it's legit. And I know that there's been controversy. Oh, you can breathe just fine in an N95. I don't know. I run my mouth a lot, and I tell my patients this too. I'm like, I think my breathing comes because I talk. But when we're working in physical therapy, we do have to tell the patient, like, hey, okay, now we're going to try this. I need you to put your hand, and I'm like yelling through the mask so they can
And
hear me.
they can't hear you
They can't
sometimes.
hear
And
you. They
sometimes
can't.
they're hard of hearing and they can't understand you at
Yes.
all.
And if they're
Yes.
hard of hearing, they're used to reading lips, and now they can't
Right.
even read your lips. So you're trying to break. So it's
But I'm going to tell you, in the
physically.
hospital aspect too, each patient, when they're out of ICU, and we had a whole COVID ward, they had nothing in that room. They had no TV. They had nothing in that room at all. And the door was always shut, always, at all times.
So
And so
it's
they
true
were really
isolation.
secluded. Yeah, they were
Yeah,
very secluded.
it's
Yeah.
true isolation, and when you're isolated and cut off from the world, it makes your brain produce different neurotransmitters that don't help your immunity and don't help your healing.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just the physical part of it. Now I'd like to touch on the emotional part of it. I know how I feel when I work with a patient that's not, that isn't diagnosed with COVID, and is struggling and having a hard time. We feel like we're there to heal them. We're there to help them, get back on their feet and fix why they're there. And this applies to therapy, nursing, doctors, anybody in the healthcare field. I don't even care if you're talking about the janitors and things like that, the housekeepers in the hospital. They all feel we're there because we care about the patient. So as a healthcare professional, and you're trying to heal the person and heal that patient, you want them to get better as fast as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we have certain guidelines we can follow or tell the patient what to expect, like total knee replacement patient. Well, you know, you and I have been doing this long enough. We can confidently tell a patient, okay, well, this is what you should expect. And we feel good about that because we've seen so many total knee patients. But COVID patients, I mean, you know, we don't exactly know what to say, but just provide encouragement. And we're here to help you. We're here to make you stronger. We just have to go day by day. You know, we don't have any set boundaries or protocols that we can go by right now. And the nurses and doctors are the same way. So can you talk about that a little bit too, of the emotional side of working with COVID patients and working in acute care? Like, how has that changed or affected you?
Yeah, I mean, just watching the presentation of some of the patients and how different each patient is. I mean, it's almost surreal. I was kind of coming down and looking above it all. But you know, I had certain patients where they hear me, but they can't open their eyes. They don't have the strength to even, they can talk to me a little bit, but they don't have the strength to open their eyes. They want to do stuff. They pay attention. They follow my commands. They talk back to me somewhat, but they are so physically drained that they can't perform. And then I have the others that it seem to be better, but also they're on oxygen that they've never been on before. So it's like my job to kind of help, and I help the nurses do this too, because the nurses are taxed as well. So, okay, we get them to do activity. Well, let's see, how much oxygen do you need? You know, and I realize, you know, at rest, they may be at 2 liters, but when their activity, they start walking, just like 10, 20, 30 feet, they need 4 liters. You know, yeah. So then that's hard for them to even, you know, and they're struggling and they're out of breath, and you're just like, God. And some of them are young. I had even, he was in his 30s, one patient that I had, you know, so it is very emotional and sad to watch them. But then it's also, once I mean, I've seen a lot of recovery too, which has been really great as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And that's what that's when our job is like, oh wow, yes, that's so cool. Yeah, that is amazing. Well, that is why I started Conquer Mental COVID. That's why I wanted to launch this program, because I feel like I want to support other healthcare professionals and educators, because we've had such a huge change in our emotional, in our world. You know, the brain always searches for that comfort zone and the normal, and we've been totally thrown off track. Every single healthcare professional, doesn't matter what aspect, it's affected you in some way. So thank you so much for sharing this, Kim. I'm going to share this on every social media channel. I think people need to hear it. I think we need to continue to talk about it, because COVID is not going away anytime soon.
Right.
Now we have the vaccine that's out. There's going to be controversy around that. And so maybe we can revisit that in the near future, and how everything just is constantly changing and how we can adjust.
Well, thank you for having me. And like I said, I'm going to probably get the vaccine very soon, but I'm happy to share, you know, how, like, side effects of that or whatever you want to do. But yeah, I appreciate you having me, because this has been a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, it has. And we don't, you know, as in healthcare, we don't get to sit down. Well, we can't see anybody right now. Like, nobody can like really hang out. I haven't seen you in forever. And I don't know, you know, when we're trying to protect our patients and our families. And so we never get to talk. So, hey, Zoom is the best part. But if we can just help some some nurses, therapists, doctors out there deal with these changes a little bit better. That's what I want to do. So I really appreciate you being on here today, Kim. I really appreciate it, and stay safe.
You too,
And
honey.
thank you. Thank you again.
All right, thank you.